In the early 70s, Warner Bros. Jungle Habitat opened as the largest drive-through safari park in the United States. Home of Bugs Bunny and exotic animals, the park welcomed millions of people during the short 4 years it operated, before being closed and abandoned forever. In the years since, stories of roaming wild animals, the ghosts of animals who were abandoned there, and worse, have plagued the woods of New Jersey, where for nearly 50 years, the remnants of the park can still be discovered today.
Glad to have you on safari with us at Warner Bros. Jungle Habitat.
This is England, and we're looking at the Marquis of Berk's latest idea to keep the visitors flocking to see the sights at his stately home of Longleat.
In 1966, the first safari park opened outside of Africa, at Longleat House in England. The concept of taking your own vehicle through animal enclosures was incredibly popular, and after the success of Longleat, places all over the world were looking to open safari parks of their own. Longleat had been the idea of Jimmy Chipperfield, co-director of the Chipperfield Circus. After the success of Longleat, he would begin to expand with more safari parks all over the world. It would be another from the Chipperfield family, Jimmy's brother, who would bring the safari park to the United States. A year after Longleat opened, the first South Drive-Thru Safari Park would open in the USA. Lion Country Safari opened near West Palm Beach, Florida, created by a South African lawyer, Harry Schuster, and Richard Chipperfield, who stated that this idea was created from the sensational success of the Lions of Longleat, which had seen 10-mile-long queues to get in during opening year. The park originally only focused on lions, but over the years would expand to include other animals. The $3.3 million park, which was often touted as the first cageless zoo in the USA, was a big success, and the company began to expand with further Lion Country safaris throughout different states. It wouldn't be long though until competition began to rise. In 1969, African Lion Safari would open in Port Clinton, with help from Richard Chipperfield. This would be owned by a new company called Animal Management Services, operated by President Brian Hunt. Previously, the team had worked together to create World of Animals near Dallas, before forming their own safari park division. AMS was also a subsidiary of the International Animal Exchange, a company founded by Brian Hunt in 1960 to help zoos with their need for the relocation of exotic animals, and they had helped nearly every safari park with their animals. AMS was created to be their company to develop and operate more drive-through preserves. After African Safari, the company would also operate a walk-through wildlife exhibit in Providence, Rhode Island. By the early 70s, safari parks were becoming all the rage, with every one more profitable than the last. Lion Country Safari would eventually expand to 5 parks throughout the USA. Animal Management Services was now looking to expand their safari offerings quickly. In December 1971, secret plans by Animal Management Services were announced that they would build the biggest drive-thru in the world, located in West Milford, New Jersey. Expected to cost $10 million and use 450 acres of the 1,000 acres that they owned, with the rest being held for future expansions. It was said that up to 2,000 exotic animals and birds would be arriving in New Jersey by April the following year, ready for a planned June 15th opening. Not only would the plans be to build a safari park, but also later to expand to include hotel resorts, amusement parks, and golfing areas. Less than a month after the announcement of the country's new largest safari park, it was then announced in January 1972 that AMS's new park would bear the Warner Bros. Name. Brian Hunt of AMS said that the Licensing Corps of America had arranged an agreement where Animal Management Services of New Jersey would license the use of the Warner Bros. Name, along with the use of the famous Looney Tunes characters for the new park. Brian Hunt stated that Warner Bros. Is among the most distinguished names in the entertainment industry, and they felt that their name would add greatly to jungle habitat. Animal Management Services also stated that under the licensing agreement terms, his company was authorized to create a variety of special promotions featuring Warner Bros. And Looney Tunes characters, and that even more announcements would be coming. Animal Management Services would name its brand new wildlife park Warner Bros. Jungle Habitat, and it was set to be open in June 1972. They hoped this would be the first of multiple Warner Bros. Licensed safari parks, and depending on the success of this one, they had plans for 9 more. Ted Ashley, chairman of Warner Bros., stated that the company had been seeking to expand its operations into the family recreation field for more than a year, and after researching upcoming trends, they wanted to start by getting into the animal park business. The jungle habitat itself would feature 1,500 animals separated by natural and hidden barriers, which were all patrolled by armed guards. Halfway through the 4-mile trail, visitors could stop at Jungle Junction, where a 500-seat amphitheater would feature live shows and the Warner Bros. Characters. Another area would allow families to field wild young animals, including lions. There would be restaurant facilities, a deer park, and a picnic area for those who wanted to bring their own food. Visitors could also purchase art and souvenirs from Africa in the shop, see African dance shows, porpoise shows, or ride an elephant or camel. The park would be open originally from 9 AM to 8 PM, with last entry at 6, 7 days a week, and visitors could come face to face with lions, tigers, baboons, and more for just $3.75 per person. This was later changed to one price per car.
About to begin a most unusual adventure, a unique safari, one that will take you from the wild of Africa across the European continent to Asia, and then across the polar ice cap to the Western Hemisphere. As you drive along the miles of Safari Trail, you'll be in another world, a world in which distance and time are compressed into one unforgettable experience. And in all the world, this experience can only happen here at Warner Bros. Jungle Habitat.
Warner Bros. Jungle Habitat was set to open on June 15th, but was then delayed to July 1st, and right before opening delayed again to July 15th, when it finally opened. Heavy rain had delayed the opening, and a lot was still under construction for weeks after the opening. It didn't stop people visiting though. For the first month, attendance reached 250,000. Park president Brian Hunt said they were not surprised by the success, just pleased. They worked very hard to create a total entertainment facility, and the combination of northern New Jersey's natural beauty, the fascination people have for animals, and the tendency for people to really let go when assaulted by the slapstick humor of funny cartoon characters, turned out to be a sure winner. The projection for the first year's attendance was hoped to be 1.1 million guests, and it seemed like it was off to a great start. One of the big promotions that they used to sell the park was that the location and nature of New Jersey, and how it was once attached to the Rift Valley of Africa. Approximately 150 million years ago, Africa and the Americas were on the same continent, and New Jersey was in the middle of it, and the Warner Bros. Jungle Habitat stands on the area that was close to what would once be one of the hills of Africa, and they even contain the same kind of rock. Small amounts of it, but some. Which Brian Hunt stated that was one of the reasons they had chosen New Jersey, as New Jersey's terrain was similar to that of Africa. Anyway, Jungle Habitat was popular at opening, and those who visited had a memorable and unique experience. After opening, it took a few weeks for all the areas and attractions to be ready due to that heavy rain. The restaurant did not open for months, but there was a zebra merry-go-round, and you would be able to take pictures with Looney Tunes characters. While most safari parks were big and open areas with animals roaming, Jungle Habitat, while larger, felt more intimate. While initially popular, it wouldn't be long until trouble began. Just 2 weeks after opening, newspapers reported that Jungle Habitat would be facing shutdown as the county board of freeholders threatened legal action against the park for failing to receive county approval for road openings. The proposed lawsuit came from an increasing amount of complaints from the local residents about traffic congestion after the park opened. Traffic to the new park would be a constant complaint from locals who said they had to adjust their daily lives because of it. While those visiting enjoyed the park, it would essentially start a war with residents who hated the disruption, while others praised it for the money it was bringing to the town. While weekdays at the attraction could be a nice visit, weekends could be dreadfully slow as you inch through the attraction. Local businesses said they were losing customers because locals did not want to face the traffic to come and visit them. With the traffic a major issue, other setbacks came. In October, a lion attacked a tourist when he couldn't read signs and rolled down his windows near a lion and tempted the lion to come over. As he did not speak English or Spanish, the only languages reported on the signs in the park. 2 months later, TV personality Jack Parr was bitten by a tiger cub while at the park. Animals were often also escaping their enclosures. Though most normally returned, it was a constant fear for those nearby. In the first year, local residents were often seen outside protesting. The opening year welcomed around 762,000 guests in the 3.5 months it was open. Much of the coverage of the park after opening focused on the effects it had on the residents for making their lives miserable. The average attendance a day was over 2,000, but on busier days people were being turned away due to the traffic. They had high hopes though, and expected the second year would exceed 1.5 million guests in attendance. During the first year, stories from the park ran wild, with reports of animal waste ruining local water sites, to the story of a woman who gave birth in an ambulance because heavy traffic from the park had prevented it from reaching a hospital. Stories of elephants sitting on people's cars, and more. On several occasions, police ordered the park to stop selling tickets due to all the blocked roads around the local area. The entrance was uphill, and with people driving slowly in the heat, it often led to cars overheating, and the tow truck fees for the park were huge, and it often led to the traffic backing up even further. Quickly, they came up with a proposed entrance move that would help to fix these issues, one of the things they had never expected during the opening year. While the first year was deemed extremely successful by park officials, in January 1973, the park closed fully for updates, mostly to its road structures to try and stop the huge traffic jams that were occurring throughout the experience, and to add a water purification system to stop local water being contaminated by animal waste. They even added a second safari trail so they could send people into one or the other. The park insisted they were thinking of continual change and expansion, but first they would respond to the overwhelming demands of the public by improving the road systems. To do so, they would expand the safari and increase the number of compounds to try and provide easier access for a large volume of vehicles. Further additions in 1973 included playground areas for children, more snack bars, an increase of showtimes, and a move-in of the park's entrance. The park's grand reopening was set for May 12th, and they hoped the traffic issues due to the backup of entering would now be fixed. The reaction to the expansion was negative from locals. The town was now turning against the park and calling out the park for fixing their own issues inside the park and nothing actually affecting locals outside of it, and not putting up money and improve roads around the area. Eventually, the county agreed to widen roads in the area, and slowly some public did turn around favorably towards the park. This $2 million investment to improve the park systems and roads began to work, and the traffic stopped being quite so bad. Even before Jungle Habitat opened, Lion Country Safari, not wanting to be outdone, announced they would open an even bigger drive-through safari in New Jersey. While this didn't happen, at that moment, Jungle Habitat was one of the few wildlife preserves of its type on the East Coast. Within the next year, that was about to change. Great Adventures Inc., who operated wildlife preserves in Europe and Canada, had announced they were going to build the new biggest drive-through safari in the world. No further details were given, and they would not take questions, but behind the scenes they were already transferring animals to a location less than 100 miles south of Jungle Habitat. Not only would the new location feature a giant drive-through safari, but also a giant amusement section called the Enchanted Forest that would feature real rides, with estimates for the project reported to cost $20 million, double that of Jungle Habitat. Not only would this outdo the park, it would aim to take most of its audience, which had been coming from New York. When Great Adventure opened on July 1st, 1974, it attracted huge crowds, causing long waits for rides and giant traffic jams. Jungle Habitat was still recovering from having to spend an extra $2 million to fix its road infrastructure, and very little more had been added since opening. Great Adventure was new, fresh, and offered real rides. And they already had promised more would be coming for 1975 with a new Fantasyland. They essentially were ignoring their traffic concerns from opening year with short-term fixes to get past the struggles, while using that money instead to expand the park. For 1975, Jungle Habitat added a new reptile show, while Great Adventure increased its ride count by 50%, added more places to eat and drink, and more to do, seeing an increase of 83% in attendance. As Warner Bros. Jungle Habitat opened for its 4th season on April 5th, while it had expanded its roads and improved its traffic issues, they had never really added much to bring people back. Those from New York and the surrounding areas were choosing to visit Great Adventure over Jungle Habitat. The Warner Bros. Element was rarely involved outside of the show's character meet and greets and signage, and people now wanted not only to see animals, but ride rides. Newspapers reported that Great Adventure was bigger, more diverse, and more attractive than New Jersey's original Safari Park. As Jungle Habitat prepared to open on May 8, 1976, areas were refreshed and new entertainment offerings were added. During the closed season, the park had applied to the town's planning board seeking permission to bring in carnival rides to increase attendance. The rides were set to be leased from Germany and placed in one of the parking lots. Local residents close by did not want rides added and already complained about hearing animal noises during the night. The town rejected the idea. After expanding for multiple years, Great Adventure for 1976 had hired Randall Dahl to help improve the flow and look of the park. With a new entrance and new owners were brought in. To try and compete behind the scenes, Warner Bros. Jungle Habitat was looking at attendance increases at other parks and finally decided they needed to expand if they wanted to compete. Attendance and profit was falling, animal bills were high, and if they didn't come up with something soon, they would not be able to continue. In July 1976, rumors were confirmed that Warner Bros. Jungle Habitat was to add a multi-million-dollar amusement park to its Drive Thru Safari. They stated that planning and design studies for the amusement parks would begin after the park had closed for the year on October 3rd. The expansion was set to occupy the remaining 600 acres of land that they had unused adjacent to the safari park that was once earmarked for resorts and golf courses. They had big plans to make it the largest and #1 amusement park in the East. They had already begun shopping for monorails, log flumes, and roller coasters for the project, and they would produce a big park with rides nobody believed. They said, not even Disney World. The park had no specific timetable for construction. They hoped it might be complete by 1977, but they wouldn't rush it. When people asked why they wanted an amusement park now, they quoted, "Market studies said it was what people wanted, and they felt it was the time to expand." After 4 years, on October 30th, 1976, after the park was closed for the season, and people were excited to see the amusement park addition plans, Warner Bros. Jungle Habitat General Manager Richard Needleman sent a letter to the town informing them that Jungle Habitat would be closed forever. The town's second largest taxpayer and the largest seasonal employer would be no more. That expansion of a theme park would never come. The owners had decided that a wildlife preserve by itself was not profitable in this part of the country in current times. Safari parks alone were not enough to bring people back once they had seen the animals. There were many that would blame the town for its closure. The same town that fought them every step of the way. The closure would be effective immediately, and it would never reopen. Despite the closure, the owners would retain the land, but there was no word on what the plan was to do with it. While the rumors and confirmation from the park's expansion never came to be, township officials insisted they never saw any formal plans for such an expansion. Rumors had been seen that the park was selling off its animals during close season, but nobody deemed this unusual as they often sold and rebought animals while the park was closed year to year. Behind the scenes, while no formal plans had been submitted, the reaction to expanding the park with an amusement park was mostly negative from the town. Officials feared the return of the traffic from opening year, and others worried it would attract undesirables. With its finances in trouble, and the opposition to their potential plans already causing a stir, the park had decided the best option was to just close, and the town would lose its nearly $400,000 a year property tax the park brought in, and one of its biggest employers. After the closure, more came out about the issues the park was facing. The residents of Holmes protested vigorously, first expansion proposed, and town officials then demanded the right to approve of each ride individually instead of all of them at once. The applications for the rides was then withdrawn before any final action was taken. Warner Brothers had stated that West Milford had already placed a lot of restrictions on the products that they wanted to build, and they called it the opposite of the great relationship between Jackson and Great Adventure, which was booming with expansion after expansion, even after a tough start. The application for the rides were then withdrawn before any final action was taken. Since opening in 1972, 6 million people had visited Warner Brothers Jungle Habitat and seen its 1,500 animals. The attendance numbers in the final season were less than 500,000 and continued to decline. There was talk from the mayor that he believed Warner Brothers had spent a lot of money on the park, and they would not just pack up and leave the town and would find a way to keep it open. By January 1977, Jungle Habitat was put on the market for $3.2 million. As for the animals, it was reported in February that Warner Communications had sold them all in one lump sum to the largest animal dealer in the United States. That buyer was International Animal Exchange, parent company of Animal Management Services, and its founder, Brian Hunt, the very same Brian Hunt who founded the park. After closing, the park sat abandoned. During early 1977, reporters from a newspaper discovered over 34 dead animal carcasses, some of which were said to be mutilated, left along the roads of the former wildlife park. An elephant with no head, dehorned rams, and worse, was found laying in the grounds of the park. At the time, there were around 300 animals remaining living at the park. The park manager of the closed park originally denied that there was any dead animals at the park, before later saying that animals had died of natural deaths from illness, old age, or fights, and had been cut open during autopsies performed on them after their deaths. He said these autopsies were performed on the rocky roadway and nearby wooded areas because heavy snows had prevented the removal of the animals to the park's burial grounds. There were conflicting reports at the time, and some said that some of the animals had not been sold, and this was the way the park were removing them cheaply. Many questioned the stories of these autopsies, saying it looked like someone had done some big game trophy hunting. The park's manager also said there was nothing wrong with dissecting the animals and leaving the bodies in the woods. An investigation was requested. It was later deemed by the Department of Agriculture that there was no reason to be suspicious, and it was seen as normal to wait until after winter to fully bury the animals when the ground was frozen. It did not help the closed park's reputation. As the park sat closed and abandoned, rumors began that the animals were just left and escaped into the woods. For decades, residents talked about how they had seen a rare animal in the area, or that the location was haunted by dead animals. None of which was really true, as eventually all the remaining animals were shipped out, but the tales of the wild animals left running through the woods exist even to this day. Nearly a year after closing, there were still no buyers for Jungle Habitat, even after its price was reduced. It was even offered to be sold to Great Adventure, who said why would they ever buy it and go into competition with themselves. The most promised by the town and hoped for use of the land was that it was once considered to become a training ground for the New York Cosmos soccer team and a soccer hall of fame. Reports were still numerous, and more talked about the horrors of transporting these animals to their new parks, many of which would pass away on their way to their new home. There was conflicting reports of remaining animals at the site. One said only one elephant remained, another reported a few hundred animals. International Animal Exchange, who purchased the animals and sent the majority to other parks they operated, was reportedly the target of a federal probe into violations of the Animal Welfare Act. Sadly, animal safety and care was completely different and much more lax during the first decades of safari parks. These conflicting reports continued throughout the years following the park's closure. Whatever the truth was at the time, it was sad for the animals of jungle habitat. Eventually, a group of businessmen would purchase the park from Warner Communications. They said they had not yet decided what to do with the land. Eventually, they decided to build a series of amphitheaters to hold nightly outdoor performances and fine arts. The sale to the group of businessmen called Evergreen defaulted on its purchase. Instead, Eager Venture purchased the site to turn it into a campsite. These new owners were hit with a lawsuit from Evergreen, who said they had not defaulted and they actually owned the site. During this time, the park still sat abandoned, rotting away. The animals were gone, and everything was starting to be taken back by nature. Reporters repeatedly asked to come in and take pictures of the remains of the park, but each new owner refused it, saying they already had enough bad publicity from the dead animals. That creepy dead animal campground never came, and the land was sold to a new developer after new developer. Warner Brothers were often asked about the park and the site, and refused to comment, saying it was in the past and needed no further discussion. Rumors about the left-behind animals that conflicted with news reports continued to be huge throughout the area. Whatever the truth, the closure of the wildlife park was extremely messy, was not good for any of the animals, and left a place that slowly began to rot away. For years, the park sat abandoned. Rumors, myths, and stories increasing year by year about how the animals had just been abandoned and could be seen roaming around. The state of New Jersey would eventually purchase the site, and it would remain a topic of discussion of what to do with it for years. Today, the park is publicly open and is one of the few abandoned themed places you can visit without being trespassed. Today it is occasionally used for special events, including the Autumn Lights Festival, and the area is now full of bike trails.
Before you begin your safari, there are a few points to be remembered. The animals that populate this game preserve are wild. They can become dangerous. To assure a safe safari, you must keep your car windows rolled up.
Warner Brothers' jungle habitat was short-lived. It had a love-hate relationship with locals, but for those that visited, it left a lasting impression. While often considered Warner Brothers' first attempt at a tourist attraction, their full involvement is somewhat skeptical. What was originally announced as just a licensing deal, later called a full partnership, and at times full owners of the attraction, it didn't really matter to the many people enjoyed seeing the park's animals, taking pictures with Bugs Bunny and his friends, and seeing the shows. Its closure not only hurt the local economy, but those animals that had for a short time called it home. Today, nearly 50 years after it opened and closed, the remnants of Warner Brothers' jungle habitat can still be found in the woods of West Milford, and those nearby still insist that wild lions, tigers, and more roam the area. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Expedition Extinct. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to join the expedition. Follow us on social media for updates on upcoming episodes, and a special thank you to our Patreons for supporting the channel. We will see you next time.